thank you so much for coming this evening. And many of you may remember that we had this epic event in the Metreon with, like, you know, couture dresses and, you know, all sorts of panels and a whole bunch of products and so on. And so it's so incredible. We just went to the first floor and now we're here in Target Open House, and I'd like to thank them so much for, finding interest in what we're doing, and also that we are making beautiful, smart products for women. Yeah, that you actually want to wear and use. So I would like to thank also all of our incredible partners who may have also invited you. We have the Queen of Bra in London. We have also the Fashion Incubator of Macy's. We have also the Women in 3D Printing, and we have the San Francisco Bay Angels, and we have also the Law on the Runway. And it's just wonderful to have these incredible partners that are so strong in fashion and in tech. And so this evening, I would really like us to think about the question of why so few wearable tech companies make it. You know, there's like the graveyard of wearable tech, right? And in my 10 years of doing fashion technology, I've sort of watched this all happening. And you may or may not know that I've been in China for 10 years and coming back and forth. And I just said, like, wow, we need to do something about this. So this evening, I'm really delighted to first introduce to you Deepa Vora. And Deepa, if you would please come up, like, she's my shiro, you guys. Deepa is amazing. She started the first, the first wearable jewelry company that you would actually want to wear the jewelry. It was called Cuff.io, and it was amazing. But in Deepa's journey, you know, there are some things that happened, and now she's on a different journey and a different trajectory. And so I would love to speak with Deepa this evening about that journey, and also have her share her valuable insight so that other wearable tech companies, other fashion tech companies can avoid those pitfalls. So thank you so much for being here. Deepa, do you mind to take a seat and we'll have a little chat? So I just talked a lot. Do you want to say first something to
Hi, everyone. What do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, okay, so I'm somebody that hits it hard, okay? And Deepa is somebody that can, you know, bat the ball back. And so Deepa, I mean, when I look at my company and I think about what I would do if I lost my company, I think quite honestly, a gun and like really going to the end would be something that would be very close on my mind. Many of you know that we've actually lost a lot of great CEOs to companies, to, you know, suicide, to depression. I think that leaders often are these kind of manic people. We go down and then we go back up. Today's an up day. And so, first of all, like, how do you survive this type of heartbreak? I don't imagine that I could survive it. And I would like to know, you know, how do you get through that?
Let me stop for a second. I'm going to show you guys some props, okay? Hi. So my company Cuff was featured in this exact space a long time ago. It looked like this, and the entire idea is what Anina is doing now. It's
beautiful, intelligent jewelry.
It's embedding technology into things that people want to do anyway, right? It's putting things into jewelry. It's putting things into things people want to buy, whether or not it has technology in it, adding incremental value, right? But to answer your question, yeah, it was very tough. I'm not sure this is the audience that wants to know what it is to build a startup, but if it is, you guys can ask me. We got like 50% there. And
I think you got a lot farther. Everybody wanted your stuff. You were on every single page. I wanted your stuff, and you're a person that inspires people to follow you. And so, I mean, I think it was maybe your family that helped you. Was it then also looking to the future that you have now many new projects? What is it that helped you to, come back up? Now I know your next projects are huge.
well, let's talk about this stuff. I think we should talk about wearable tech, right? I am now 2 years out of the game, but I still don't see the products I want to wear, right? I don't see the stuff that is so subtle that is something you would buy regardless of what it does. And I think that is a little bit of a missed market, right?
Yeah.
Don't you want to wear jewelry? I wanted to make jewelry that you would wear whether or not it did anything, right? Then there's also the focus on safety. My first product was about keeping women safe. And what needs facelift more than I've fallen and I can't get up? Right?
Right.
Like, that needs a facelift. Why are you laughing at me?
But what I really want to know is then you built this strong company, you built these people to follow you, you were like marching on the way, you were facing all of these troubles of manufacturing and so on, and that is incredibly hard. So that's one of the reasons that so many companies fail, is they can't get to mass manufacture.
Well, if we're going to go down that route, it needs to be whether people are building companies, because even though it's a cliche, hardware is hard and it takes a lot of money. So you need to understand when you're a startup that you need a different amount of funding to have that startup. As a consumer, it's different. It's a different battle. For a consumer, it needs to be, what is going to be habit forming? Why do I want to buy this product versus this product, right? As an entrepreneur, it's figuring out how to make it.
And then there's like the whole idea that you have to build this mystique, this brand, this strong identity. You also had a very, very strong identity of women and a very clear image, sort of a fashion way of going about it. You knew who your muse was.
I absolutely knew that I wanted to make this go into jewelry I would buy, regardless of what it did.
And so what would be your takeaway and your biggest advice for those hardware companies, you know, that are facing difficulty, or how to avoid the difficulty? What is the biggest difficulty?
Honestly, there's two things. There's, actually there's three things. One, make sure you understand how expensive hardware is. Two, make sure you understand design. People want to wear beautiful things. They don't want to wear gadgets, right? Three, hang out with her.
And when you were facing also getting investment as a woman, like, how did you do it? Because you were the first. You were the one. You were the pinup girl, you know, that all of a sudden everyone was like, yes! At least in my fashion feed on my Facebook, you were. Like, you were the one woman sort of icon who was really pushing forward in hardware. But then when you went to get funding, like, how did you nail it?
You guys want to hear this story?
Yeah, right? Come on, you guys. Do we want to talk real, or do we want to talk fluff? I don't want to talk fluff.
So, the idea of design plus technology was very palatable. The investment role is a bunch of men trying to figure out what women want. Right? It's the way men invented bras.
They always say to me, like, let me ask my wife. Do you have eyes? But I don't understand fashion, Anina. I'm like, okay, but fine, ask your wife.
Right, so it was surprisingly easy to get a first round of funding.
That's because you look like a fashion model and you have so much energy and passion for what you do.
You are a fashion model.
That you convinced them, right? Was it your passion? But you also, did you do a lot of research into data, or were you like blind and in the dark and just?
I had no idea. I'm a first time. I was a first time entrepreneur. I was the first time CEO. My background's very varied. I was a CEO for the first time. I was a lawyer. I was the VP of product at Restoration Hardware. I was a journalist. So I think all those things combined and congealed to make it palatable for investment.
They believed you.
They believed me, and they believed in the vision that I saw, and I believe that vision translates to wearable technology and where it's going. And you believe it's in jewelry, and so do I. And in things that we actually want to wear.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deepa. She's my hero, you guys. Like, she did it. She's still doing it. Thank you so much, Deepa. This is awesome. Wonderful. Can we leave this here? It's so pretty. Wonderful.
This is where it was going.
Wow, so small.
So that's the biggest thing about wearable tech is miniaturizing where it's going. We can pass it around.
That's the module, correct?
You can pass it around, yeah.
So it's very small, like our tutu kit. Because once you have a small module, then jewelry designers can actually design
around it. It's an open platform, right? So people like Kate Spade can make bracelets around something, and it will do more than your bracelet already does.
And now we're going to hear from our two designers. We have Nadya and also Heather, who are coming up. Thank you so much, Deepa. Awesome. Deepa is my hero. Come on over, you guys. This is like perfect what Deepa was saying.
I also have a 3D printed thing for you guys, because I know one of you does that.
They both do it.
That was the 3D printed first thing.
Awesome. All right, you guys. So Heather Blaikie, I met at the Women in 3D Printing, and she is actually a professional jewelry designer, and she works with companies to do design as a consultant, plus she is also teaching at the Academy of Art 3D Printing as a class. And then I met Nadya also through Women in 3D Printing, and Nadya is actually a 3D printing expert. And what struck me was when I met her is she had these awesome 3D printed jewelry earrings, and so these ladies have actually worked with our 360Fashion Tutu kit. You can see their designs over in that area. Please do check it out and talk to them. And so I would like to first thank you so much for being here and also for making these experiments. And I would like to ask you, Heather, first, like, as a professional jewelry designer, and we met because you were like, yeah, I want to get into tech. And, what attracted you as a designer to want to put tech or want to experiment? I think you told me about some other projects that you had been working on.
One of my pet projects I've been working on for a few years is a headpiece or a headlight, but not that looks like a piece of plastic stuck to your head that can be worn, and so it's utilitarian. I ride my bike and need a headlight, and I want plastic on my head. And that's a place that jewelry, I guess it's a headband, you know?
Headpiece.
Yeah, but a headpiece. So I've been working on that for a few years. I've done a lot of research, a lot of physical prototypes, but I really was running into the problem of the tech. I had several different hardware engineers agree to work with me, were excited, but I couldn't keep their interest. And I had someone teach me to solder. I soldered a few LEDs together, but it just wasn't enough, you know. So I did, and it would be solar powered, that headpiece. And so when I found Anina and the different kits that she offers, this is really what I need so that I can focus on the ergonomics of it, the beauty of it, and the wearability of it, and not have to be held up by making my own circuit.
And Nadya, you have been actually working with the kit, and when you came over and you made your first try, then you saw like, oh, this is what it looks like to have a piece of tech in there. How did you have to change your thinking, or change your idea, or change your design?
Yeah, design it's always about iteration. First time when I saw the kit, I noticed that it's mostly used with metal and gems, and I want to work with plastic. It's different materials that it doesn't have any reflections. It's can be translucent, can be transparent, but that's it. And my first design attempt was to create a thing very close like that things, but I noticed that when you put it on light, when surface too close to lights, it actually doesn't do any interesting effect. It's very simple, plain light. We change colors, that's it. It's not interesting. And I decided to increase the dome of the pieces of the surface. And now, if you put, I have a demonstration piece there, you can totally play with it and touch. If you put light inside it, you will see that now it has very interesting game of shadows and light, and interesting light pattern, and all my pieces has different patterns. In that case, all pieces is every piece is unique, and every piece has different light pattern.
And Heather, you've worked with a lot of startups doing design, and I remember when we talked, you were like, I'm so tired of doing design, and then I watched those companies fail. And in your consulting business, then you switched over to a different approach. What is that approach that can help them be successful?
Yeah, so I've recently repositioned my consulting business to product development consulting with design as one of my services. I have 15 years in corporate environments, specifically for Fossil and Skagen, and I learned a lot about research, branding, and the marketing and sales that have to come after it. So I've met a few startups when I started my design practice, and they hired me to do the design. And we had beautifully designed products that didn't go anywhere. And the things I identified is either they didn't do their market research beforehand to see if it was a viable product that people wanted. I've designed a very beautiful luxury iPhone case. It's very beautiful. And then they also didn't have the sales and marketing strategy afterwards. So I've repositioned myself to be a product development consultant so that they understand, if you work with me, I'm going to help you from the beginning. I teach industrial design studio classes, design thinking, and it's not everyone has the benefit of going through that. So now I make sure that we start with the user research. And like Deepa said, a lot of people, especially from the tech world, don't understand how much money and time it's going to take when you start doing a physical product. 3D printing does really help, and I used it a lot to drive down the price and the lead time needed. But again, the luxury iPhone case, for an example, we couldn't ever, the amount of time it takes to get it manufactured and shipped over, a new phone is out.
So Nadya, I mean, you are actually working on jewelries that are coming out of the printer, right? And so I do think that's cool, the kit combined with the idea that if you do have some skills, you could design your own style of jewelry and print it out. But maybe you could talk a little bit about, you know, the realistic part of being able to do that, and also the results that you've seen from using the 3D printing from an aesthetic design perspective.
3D printing, if somebody doesn't know, now you have a lot of different materials there: metal, plastic, stone. But every material has different technology for it, and there are a lot of limits there. And when you try to print with just regular plastic like that, this is the very fast and cheap solution for fast prototyping, but it's sometimes not very pleasant aesthetics, because you definitely see production lines, you see the layers. But with metal you don't have that things. And when you design for 3D printing, you always need to think about from the very start which technology will you use for 3D printing, because if you design for plastic, probably you cannot switch easily for printed in metal, and totally you cannot switch to printed in resin because it's different approach. This is kind of limits, but if you know from the beginning what kind of technology, what kind of 3D printing you will use, in that case you'll have a lot of freedom to use it, because if you know limitation, you know how to break them, how to break them.
And you guys are actually doing a 3D printing course together, which I want to take, because you start from the beginning. But Heather, you talked about in your teaching at the school that you actually don't just sort of give a theory out there. You want them, and you want in your class that people don't just walk away with the gnome, you know, the little gnome that everybody prints out, that you want them to actually design something that they made that they can take home.
Yeah, this is the best part, because if you do something that you can use just right now, it's so fun. It's not just you do some doodles in 3D. We teach the whole process from the beginning of designing the idea, how to model it, how to parameterize it, how to do different things, and how to prepare it actually for 3D printing, because it's another science to do. Yeah.
And in your education, how are these, schools going to teach wearable technology? They can't expect fashion designers or jewelry designers to do 4 years of engineering and 4 years of design. They'll be doctors.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I do think that your kits are really great for the classroom. We are teaching 3D printing. I come from industrial design, where you do spend a lot of time learning drafting and learning 3D modeling from a very technical standpoint. And after teaching Rhino for industrial design for a few years, I started teaching an elective class for jewelry, which also allowed anyone in the school to come into the class. So I had advertising, marketing majors, people who had no drawing experience. So I had to change the entire way that I was teaching. They had no drafting experience. And learning to 3D print, we're using very basic printers and some more sophisticated printers. I need them to start printing in the second week so that we have the time to learn it. It's not as easy as pushing print on a paper printer. You've got to learn it. So I have been teaching that class for about 3 years now, and it's gone really well. I've learned ways to get them from never doing 3D modeling to making models very quickly and printing quickly and having 2 collections by the end of the semester. So I wanted to take that style, and we're offering these workshops through Women in 3D Printing. That's been really fun.
This Sunday.
This Sunday is the second one. You can find us on Women in 3D Printing. summer workshop series on Facebook. But it's just exciting to make it more accessible. It doesn't have to be an engineer or a designer. We have anybody who get involved with it.
And so we talked about that these wearable tech companies need to actually focus on what do the users want? Do they want this aesthetic design? Do they want the product that you're thinking to make? Then we talked about how do we educate the next generation of designers through your classes, getting them up and running, and a module could help them to then start thinking about adding tech. And so sort of, you know, in a wrap-up of that, what would you say, or what would your advice be to wearable tech companies and people who would like to make something with tech inside? What do they, you know, what's the takeaway? Do they really need to think about from a prototyping or 3D printing aesthetic, and also from your experience as a professional designer?
I can say that I always think that we don't need to wait for future when it becomes, because we can create our future right now, and wearable tech actually allows us to do it, to bring it closer to us. And I think as a designer, we need probably more different shapes, different sizes, and different functionality to work with. In that case, designers will able to do different products, not only wearables like jewelry, but probably some accessories for bags, for clothing, for shoes, for hair, anything like that. Because for now, I guess the limit is the size of all the electronic parts. But every year they become smaller, smaller. And I guess one day we can do some small earrings with some interesting functionality.
Today, did you see how small the module is? Did you have something that you'd love to add about what, in your experience, having worked with so many companies and also having your own jewelry line? What do we need to think about when we're putting this tech inside?
I guess if for entrepreneurs, if you want to scale up, if you want to do mass, make sure you're not designing just for yourself. Get to know your user, identify who they are, what do they actually need, where are you going to sell it, think about it all the way through before you get started. And every time you make a decision because you like it, step back from that and ask, am I my target market?
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys, really. Thank you. So I would love to now hear from women in leadership and also from the investment perspective. I'd love to invite Julie and Jasmin up here. Are they here? Come on down. This is Julie. Everyone.
I'm here.
You're here. Wonderful. Thank you so much. First time I meet Julie. in person. So this is Jasmin. Jasmin and I have met at several events. Jasmin has been in many different roles. She is very hands-on as an investor with her companies. I have seen her also help them in marketing and help them in sales and really help them as an investor, the companies like her children. And Julie is part of an organization called Women Who Lead, and she is really shaping the next generation of women, leaders. And speaking to her is really exciting for myself as a CEO of a company. So definitely a round of applause, because we need more women VCs and we need more women leaders. So wonderful. So I like to hit it hard, you guys. We gotta ask real questions here. So my question is this: is it really gonna move the bar if we have more women VCs And I'm going to ask this to Julie first, and then your experience second. So Julie, you know, women are really meticulous. Aren't they going to be even more picky when they're looking at those startups? What's it going to do to have more women VCs?
Well, I guess I want to first start by saying women's businesses actually perform better for their shareholders over time. And so one of the things that we know, and that women are getting very small amounts of the investment capital that's available, and so it doesn't make sense, right? Wouldn't you want to be picking the companies that are going to perform the best over time? So we have a little bit of a problem in this space. And there's a group of folks, and part of it a little ecosystem, but there's some folks, I don't know if you saw the Forbes cover about these women doing this thing called All Raise. But the whole idea is to double the number of women who are the decision makers in venture capital and double the amount of money invested in women entrepreneurs. And this is what we know. In the early stages, if you're going on a corporate board or if you're investing, if you're one woman and everybody else is a man, you're trained by men, and you kind of end up acting like a man. I don't know how many of you guys, okay, most of you guys are really young, but I wore shoulder pads. I have big shoulders. I was a swimmer. I wear shoulder pads and a pencil tie. Yeah, I'm really, seriously, I'm not kidding. That's what one used to do. So I actually think you need to have more women in the room. If we could get, even 30% of decision makers being women, women start to actually leverage the feminine side of who they are and how they lead and how they think. But it's hard to do that when you're the only one. You kind of just act like a man, and you're trained by men, and you just, you kind of. Have you ever met any of those women who act like a man? Okay.
So Jasmin, I mean, in your hot orange dress, definitely not looking like a man, and you're in that room, what Julie is talking about, with a whole bunch of decision makers that outnumber you. How are you fighting for your voice or for those companies that you believe in?
So over years of experience, I think the best advice I can get, and it's a very powerful tool, is just be yourself. I think the label of being a woman or being a man is overrated. I think you just be a good professional. So I started at a semiconductor company at GE Capital, and all these really men-dominated industries in construction, in lease rentals, in temporary buildings. They call it something like modular buildings. And then also in the semiconductor. I've sat in laser companies and venture capitalists, of course. So many men are sort of intimidated by you because they don't know how to handle you. So oftentimes men just don't know how to handle women, period. So when you sit in a room and you have influence in decision making, you're very scary to them. So all you have to do is actually nurture them and understand the objective of what you're trying to accomplish at that time. So that's critically important. So at that time, they will look to you for leadership. This is what I found. So I've done everything you talked about. I have my black suits, and I got, and after I'm like, you know what, forget that. Because they respect you, they'll respect you. And then if you wear a skirt, they will still respect you if you know what you're talking about. So know your game, period.
Wow, excellent. So Julie, when we talk about raising then this next generation of women leaders, what do we need to do to level up the game? What do women as CEOs need to keep in their mind when they're going for funding and they're facing, this unbalanced situation?
Well, I might have to disagree with you a tiny bit because I don't think it's equitable. I don't think if I'm just myself and I do my homework that I'm going to have an equal shot, and the data is pretty clear about that. And so I actually think it is harder if you're a woman entrepreneur, if you're a woman CEO, to get the investment that we're talking about. It just is. The data is just very, very clear. So this is what I think you need to do. Yes, you can be undercapitalized if you don't get enough investment, but different kinds of partnerships. So one of the things people were talking about is like how to manufacture big volume of the products that we're talking about tonight. You can actually get a loan from either the retail, like let's say Target is going to actually retail your products. You get a loan from Target to do the manufacturing because they know they're buying into selling it, right? Or you can even partner with the manufacturing company itself. So I do think, there are alternatives to just going the venture capital route. And I think the other thing is, if you can find some of the women, like there's a group called Broadway Angels, a bunch of venture capitalists, they're trying to build the deal flow for women women who are looking for venture investment. So I guess I would say, try and find people who you can tell have been friendly in the past. Is something super important. Clearly, you got to do your homework, got to have a good business plan. You can't show up not knowing who your market is. I mean, that's basic stuff as far as I'm concerned. How many people here are actually entrepreneurs starting companies? Oh, awesome. So there are a whole bunch of cool tools. If you haven't put a business plan together, there's an app that's from Central Community Partners. It's kind of gamified. It's great. At the end, you can get a loan from Kiva. There's some tools, there's some great things that you can access that are pretty easy to help you get propelled. How many people are investors here that are interested in investing in this space? Okay, a couple. And then how many people in this room are just interested in the concept and maybe want to buy some cool wearable tech? Okay, good. All right, good. It helps to kind of know who's in the audience.
Jasmin, when you're facing a woman entrepreneur and judging her business, are you asking different questions than your male counterparts? Because I heard that actually when facing a male investor, you get asked different questions than, say, if you were a male CEO. And so are you more meticulous? Are you more picky? Or you just don't even see that they are women and you're just looking at the data? Like, as a woman looking at a woman entrepreneur, are you doing anything different?
So I would say often not, because business is business. Investors will invest in a good business, right? And so I've taken the surveys from my colleagues who's a venture capitalist and angel investors. The data is pretty much out there. So I understand your point about women not getting invested as much, but then you also have to look at the input and the output, right?
Yeah, I mean, great Harvard Business Review article literally says, here's what they asked women, in the venture capitalists asked the women CEOs, and here's what they asked the men CEOs. They asked women, how are you managing risk? How boring is that? They asked the men about all the opportunities for growth and how big their company can be. And it has been proven over and over again that women literally get asked different questions. The measuring stick is not the same in everything I know about it. And there's also this sort of issue of, venture really relying heavily on pattern recognition, right? And it's sort of, this cycle. It's like that I was the CEO and I, was successful, sold my company. Now I'm a venture capitalist. I'm investing in people who look like me or look like the people I know. And women aren't in the ecosystem in big enough volumes that they're getting the benefit of that pattern recognition.
So I would say that anybody wants to invest in women, I love it, but it's the same thing with a minority. Like, everybody can raise a card and say, well, I'm in the minority, right? And here I am, Asian women in the venture capital business. So I think if we can look for all the excuse in the world, or you can look for opportunity in the conversation. So the reason I don't want to emphasize on the inequalities, because I started a non-profit for women professional network, because I did see the upward mobility for women was less than men. But partly, I think we should ask ourselves, are we discriminating ourselves to start with? What if when we don't? I've gotten high level, high visibility investment opportunities just being a good human being and not disqualifying myself to start with. I really look at the opportunity, I go to them with assertiveness, and I know many, many women have done that themselves in order to look at Deepa, right? So again, there are opportunities everywhere. There are also excuses everywhere. And I think that we do what we can on the individual level because that forms a group power to say, we are going to raise women visible. There are many, many organizations now. I think the stats came from, like, so I was part of the Golden Seeds Angel Investors Group up until earlier this year. And the stats was something about 10%, now it's up to 30% of the women entrepreneurs gets founded. Of course, like, we like to see 50-50, but then we can dig down to the data to say, well, are there 50-50 women actually applying for the opportunity? So I would say the first thing is ask yourself what you can do and move it forward. And I would encourage more women entrepreneurs just to go after the opportunity. There's everything, like there's American Express Women Entrepreneurship, there's Goldman Sachs, and people nowadays like to segregate them, but I always just say, if it's a business, there's money out there, there's funding out there, just go after, whether it's grant, whether it's SBC loans, whether they qualify for women or men, it doesn't matter. Just go for it. And then that's where you will see a lot of business growth, that's where you'll see you get funded. And also compete, you know, so for example, Versace, for example, right? He's an entrepreneur, he's gay. He could have said, well, I'm gay, so nobody's funding me. No, he's very successful, right? And so and what's her name, Chu? Jimmy Chu, thank you. Yeah, is that? No, it's a man. So actually, I said I'm like so brand agnostic, you know. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's a lot of women founders and women organic clothing makers too. Also from like Asia and Africa, they're all fighting for that piece of funding. Honestly, there's so much opportunities out there. There's so much funding out there. Just go for it.
Yeah, I would love to interject you guys and say that I have heard a lot that women eliminate themselves even before they try. And so I would say that it's that encouragement and that additional support that you can give to the woman to have the courage to step out. Because as a woman, I will tell you one thing, you get judged. You stand up on stage and you speak and they're looking at your shoes and they're judging your outfit and they're talking about your hair and what lipstick you wore. And it's like you even just step out of the door in the morning and it's like head to toe, you're 5, you're 2, you're 6, right? Okay, so for some reason, except you're a male model, I don't really think you have that type of judgment because maybe you don't wear lipstick as often as we do. And so it's frightening to me to be able to step in front of a wall of male faces as I did when I made my Anina dress up in like 2008. And they all looked at me and they said, who would ever download a Gucci bag for an avatar? And I was like, have you never heard of World of Warcraft? They download swords and they pay shitloads of money for them. Like, you know, so, and you're faced with that and you freeze. You're like, I don't know what to say to you. You're
So you
right.
want to say something. You're a great example. You're a fashion model out there making on your own. You face men every day judging you or the model runway people. But look at how far you have come, right? And so what you do is that inner strength that you build. And I think that's pretty much with everything. When you come from like lack of resources, as we're talking about like in the women entrepreneurial world, honestly, you just have to be solid. Look at you, like you're articulate. You're going from China and America. That's like what, 3% of the people are doing it. Even for men, it's scary. So if you are just empowered from inside and look at what Nina has done, nobody says it's going to be easy, right? Look at Deepa's story. But if you interview a bunch of men entrepreneurs, they'll also tell you it's not easy. So it's your own road. You pave it the last thing you need to do is discriminate yourself and get yourself out of the game. Be in the game. Look for this, like nicks and cracks, and just like stand still, because the world will turn the spotlight on you like they have with you, Anina. So I just want to say it's not easy, but who cares what they say? You know who you are. You know what you do. So you just, again, the solid business plan, understand the market, understand your technology, understand the product you're in. So think of blue ocean, right? I know it's an age-old story, but who would have thought that Cirque du Soleil could be like such a big enterprise? I mean, circus, and it's like thousands of, I don't know, tens, thousands of people, I don't know how many hundreds they're old, I don't get it, but the point is that they've created industry on their own. So think about, how do you create your own industry? And there's so much opportunity out there right now with the VR, AR, the wearable technology. I actually can think of like 10 things right now people are not touching and we all need. Think about the needs of human being every day. How does that marry up with the technology, with the internet that we have today? What's the next generation of technology in the internet, right? So that human connectedness, peer-to-peer connection, the blockchain, all those are opportunities people are not touching on. The VCs are too worried about today's technology, but they're all chasing for tomorrow's technology. Look how many blockchain technology got funded dumbly, and they're going to lose a ton of money. But, just be insightful, study, and so I love stats, I do. But how many, was it Nielsen survey that you have seen, you're like, well, that's not me. And how many people are there are saying, that's not me out there, just your market and just your partners?
Julie, building women entrepreneurs, not timid women. Last thoughts, last advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing I would say in terms of the confidence building that you're talking about is, ask people to be on your personal board of advisors. You'd be surprised. I'm not talking about equity, giving them equity in a real board of advisors. It's sort of like, I'm going to ask you for 1 year to give me an hour a month as my personal advisor. And you'll be surprised, people say yes. And you can, it's so lonely at the top. And when you're trying to sort of, venture into new spaces and markets, it's wonderful to know that there's some people who don't have any self-interest. They're not on your board, they don't work for you, they aren't your investor, they're just somebody who's looking out for your best interest. So get yourself, and look around this room, there are probably some good people who could be a potential personal board of advisors for you. And just ask for the support to help you break through, because it's not easy under any circumstance to start your own company and really build it and be successful.
Absolutely, that's so great. Like, I ask people to be my mentors all the time, still today. I'm like, can you teach me how do you present? Can you teach me how to invest? How do you look at these deals? What is the step? So that's such a great advice, yeah.
Wonderful, you guys. Thank you so much for that insight. It's like awesome, building more women entrepreneurs. So I will just close this out so that we can, really have the opportunity to network with these amazing speakers that we had this evening. I just want to remind you that over in that corner, you will be able to speak with amazing designers who are integrating our tech into their prototypes. Jasmin and also Julie, if you want to learn how to be more of a leader. And Deepa is just, she's just my shiro, so she can just tell you how to navigate it, because she did it all, And then in closing, you guys, I just wanted to do kind of a news bulletin, because I rarely have the opportunity to meet everybody together. So first of all, this last year, I went and I built all of these items that you see here today, and oh my gosh, more are on the way. So making things when you live 10 years in China is not a problem, because every time I step a toe into my factories, who are my partners, by the way, I eat with those people, I sit on the factory floor with them, I'm there for the manufacturing. I don't know another way to do it. I really don't. I don't know how to like remote control it. You know, whenever I remote control it, I'm like, that's really not what I was talking about, you know? You have to be there, whether it's a local manufacturer or whatever. That would be my number one advice. And secondly, it really pisses me off how people think about factories. Like, the factory had this problem, you know, and then you're mad at the factory. Well, you know what I found out? Factory is just a whole bunch of people who have a specific skill that you need because you have to make 100,000 widgets and you cannot make them on your own. So you rope them all up in a warehouse, because where else are you gonna put them? Because you need long tables and you need a lot of space to like everybody doing their part as it moves down the line, okay? But they're humans, they need to eat, they need to go to the bathroom, they need to like have fun. And I found that when these factories became people and friends to me, and I would tell them, no, not like that, I'd rather you do it like this. And then I was there kind of like coaching them on how I wanted it done. You see now the results of those efforts. And so I would really like to tell you that everything that I have created here has been with my own blood, sweat, guts, and tears. There are YouTube videos of me with my friends going through rolls of fabric and rolls of leather and sweating in Shenzhen, etc., right? And so I would really value your feedback on what I've created. And the other thing behind that my company is doing is actually we have set up all the manufacturing so that creatives can actually do the design. And what I really has been my passion all of these 10 years is to empower the fashion industry with great technology. And so I'm really hoping there are some people out there who want to skin it, who want to design around it, and who would like to collaborate together with us. Because that's the thing that gives me joy, is to collaborate with people all over the world. And finally, you may remember my epic fashion tech show. Some of you were here, some of you were not. It was amazing. We had Rami Khadi couture bug clothing that glowed in the dark from Lebanon, and like holographic dresses, and like I got all the fashion tech together. And then we mixed the corporates together with the startups, together with the fashion students. And if there's one thing I learned from living in China is that we have to create ecosystems. Chinese don't work like it's me and I do everything. No, you create an ecosystem, and this person does this, and that one does that, and this one does this. And that's kind of why it's like a wheel, and there's knobs on my wheels of 360Fashion, because once that wheel starts turning and you have this ecosystem, it's like stuff starts shooting out of it. It's amazing and great stuff. And you have this support and this network of people working together. And so I would like to do a robotic dress hackathon. I have a robotic dress kit, right? And my passion is to attract more women to technology. But in my journey, I have found that if you ask them to take this Arduino and to like do something with it, it's like so boring, and you don't get anybody who wants to do anything with that, right? So how do we attract more women to engineering? We have to make something or give them something that they want to work with, so new materials, right-sized technology, and right tools. And then we have to have something that they want to make. And so I think robotic dresses would be just so awesome. And what would you get out of it? The engineers will learn how to speak fashion. The fashion will learn how to integrate electronics into clothing, accessories, etc., okay? And then we will learn how do we work together with those two sides. Because the next job that is needed in fashion are like clones of people like me who speak engineering and who understand fashion garment construction. This is the next big job in fashion industry that will be in high demand because fashion brands don't know how to do it, wearable tech companies don't have any style, makes sense, right? So, I would love to do my epic show, and if you guys know any people who want to join me on that expedition, obviously you need sponsors, you need people, you need materials, you need fashion designers, you need engineers, you need a lot of people in a room with a whole bunch of equipment from sewing machines to soldering irons. But if you would like to join me on that and bringing, again, my event here, then please come and talk to me or any of my awesome, cool-looking guys here. And lastly, you know, if you do like what we are doing and we're going in the right direction, please be so kind as to stop by another day to the garage. They have iPads next to the products. You can like it, tweet it, whatever, and give feedback, which is very helpful, as Heather said. And in that, I just say, enjoy the drinks, walk around, and absolutely right now, every single person turn to the person next to you, shake their hand, and tell them please your name, because we gotta like mix it up with the fashion and the tech, right? Hi, I'm Anina. Nice to meet you, Anna, right? Turn to the person next to you.
All right,
Stacey,
Anina,
over
thank
to
you
you.
so much. Please give one more warm round of applause to Anina and all of the incredible speakers tonight.